The White House says it remains optimistic over talks to end the war in Ukraine. That assessment follows a weekend of high-stakes diplomacy in Geneva, where Washington, Kyiv, and its European allies thrashed out a revised version of a 28-point peace plan put forward by the Trump administration. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has also been revealing more about those Geneva negotiations. He suggested the U.S. and Kyiv are moving closer to an agreement, but in his nightly video address indicated that there are still sensitive issues to discuss with the president.
Today, our delegation returned from Geneva after negotiations with the American side and European partners, and now the list of necessary steps to end the war can become workable. As of now, after Geneva, there are fewer points, no longer 28 points, and a lot of the right things have been taken into account in this framework.
All right, John Hardie is Deputy Director of the Russia Program at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and he joins me now from Chapel Hill. John, welcome. This was a 28-point plan that essentially cribbed from Russia's wish list, territory losses for Ukraine, an end to NATO aspirations. Now it's supposedly been pared down and is moving forward, and it seems that the urgency has abated a little bit, and this doesn't quite look like the rush job that it did a few days ago. Should Ukraine and Europe be relieved, essentially?
Well, thanks for having me on. I do think they are out of the woods in terms of the immediate danger. I think it speaks to a broader issue in the Trump administration, though, where you have these really abrupt swings in strategy. 1 minute, literally a month ago, the United States is pulling out of a summit with Putin because of his maximalist demands and imposing tougher oil sanctions. And then fast forward, 30 days or so, and the strategy is completely flipped. It's now led by Steve Witkoff, who's trying to, draft this heavily Russian-influenced peace plan, and then it's the administration is trying to impose it on Kyiv. So that inconsistency, I think, creates problems and makes the challenge of trying to get Russia to agree to something acceptable even harder.
Does anyone in particular get credit for diffusing this thing or taking it to an off-ramp where the process can slow down?
I first give credit to Kyiv for the way they've responded. I think it was a really smart, kind of rational response. They stood firm on certain issues, but engaged constructively, and I think didn't fall into what could have been a trap where they kind of refuse and then the Trump retaliates. I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio did yeoman's work in Geneva after what seemed like not having a big hand in the draft itself. So hopefully going forward, there'll be more interagency coordination and he'll be at the point of this.
Do you believe that something positive can still come out of this, despite its origin as something that appears to be heavily influenced by Russia?
It's possible. It's good to see a reinvigoration of the process, even if it wasn't under the best circumstances. I think the problem is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the Kremlin has always wanted the United States to kind of partner with it in imposing Putin's maximalist demands on Ukraine. And now the Kremlin has just witnessed some U.S. officials trying to do exactly that. So if I'm Putin, am I now more likely to accept a deal that's tolerable to Ukraine? Or am I now more likely to try to say, I think if I can get what I want if I just keep holding out? Probably the latter. So it's made the already difficult job of getting Putin to negotiate on realistic terms that much harder.
Here in Europe, the big question is what role the continent will play in these negotiations. What can we say so far?
And Europe absolutely has to be consulted, especially with regard to things that directly involve Europe. And of course, the matter of Ukrainian security in general is directly tied to European security. So they need to have a voice here. I understand why the Trump administration would want to take point itself on dealing with Ukrainians and Russians, not have too many cooks in the kitchen. But there's a difference between that and kind of blindsiding your allies with a deal in which they had no input.
All right, that's John Hardie from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. John, thank you as always.